The night Laura found the email, the one subject line that stopped her heart cold, she wasn't even looking for a secret. She was just trying to order groceries. The screen was still unlocked on the kitchen counter, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge, and there it was. A payment notice. Then another, and another. Numbers stacked so high they didn't even feel real anymore. 48,000, 49, 50. For a moment, Laura actually laughed, like your brain does when it can't accept the truth yet. She thought it had to be spam. A glitch. Someone else's life accidentally spilling into theirs. But then she saw his name. Birkan's name. And that's when the room felt like it tilted, like the floor quietly slid out from under her without making a sound. Because this wasn't just money. This was a life she didn't recognize anymore. I know what you're thinking right now. Another headline. Another couple drama story. Another, how did she not know? Moment. I thought the same thing at first. But sit with me for a second, because this one isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It's slow, quiet, and honestly, it's heartbreaking in a way that sneaks up on you. This isn't just about $50,000. This is about the way someone can be right next to you every day and still be drowning alone. Laura met Birkan before the cameras, before the comments, before strangers felt entitled to opinions about their love. Back then, he was charming in a soft way. Not the loud guy in the room. Not the flashy spender. He listened. He remembered small details. He talked about building something steady, something safe. Laura had come from chaos. Past relationships that burned hot and collapsed fast. She wanted calm. She wanted honesty. Birkan felt like that answer. And for a long time, he was. When their relationship started gaining attention online, it felt unreal to both of them. Suddenly, moments that used to belong just to them were being watched, clipped, shared, debated. Birkan handled it well on the surface. He smiled in interviews. He played the supportive partner. He talked about gratitude, about how lucky he felt. Laura believed him, because why wouldn't she? He never missed a shoot. Never blew up publicly. Never embarrassed her online. If anything, he seemed almost too perfect. But perfection can be a mask. And sometimes the quieter the person, the louder the storm they're hiding. The thing about gambling addiction is that it doesn't look like addiction in the beginning. It looks like confidence, like strategy, like control. Birkan didn't wake up one day and decide to ruin his life. It started small. A game here, a bet there, a little rush after a stressful day. A way to feel powerful when everything else felt uncertain. And when a few early wins came in, it whispered the most dangerous lie of all, you're good at this. Laura didn't see the nights he stayed up staring at his phone after she fell asleep. She didn't hear the inner panic every time a loss came in and he told himself the next one would fix everything. She didn't know that every smile in public took effort because behind it was a running total in his head that wouldn't stop climbing. He told himself he'd stop once he broke even. He told himself he'd tell her once it was under control. He told himself a lot of things. And here's where I want to pause and say this gently. If you've ever loved someone with an addiction, you know this part hurts the most. Not the money, not even the lies. It's realizing that the person you trusted didn't trust you enough to let you see them falling apart. When the first rumors started popping up online, they were easy to ignore. A Reddit thread questioning why Birkan always seemed stressed. A TikTok comment asking why Laura paid for everything lately. Twitter, or X, doing what it always does, connecting dots that might not even exist. Laura brushed it off. People talk. People always talk. She defended him in private conversations. She shut down friends who gently asked if everything was okay. Love makes you protective like that. But behind the scenes, the cracks were spreading. Bills that didn't make sense. Accounts that felt tighter than they should have been. Birkan had explanations ready every time. Taxes, delayed payments, investments that hadn't matured yet. And Laura believed him, because believing him was easier than imagining the alternative. But here's the part nobody was ready for. The debt wasn't sudden. It wasn't one bad night. It was months. Layered, hidden, carefully managed just enough to stay invisible. Credit cards maxed out in silence. Loans taken with confidence he didn't actually feel. Every loss chased with the hope of undoing it. $50,000 didn't appear overnight. It grew slowly, like a shadow stretching across their life while Laura was busy trusting the light. When the truth finally surfaced, it didn't come with yelling or thrown objects. It came with shaking hands and a quiet confession that felt heavier than any argument ever could. Birkan didn't deny it. He didn't minimize it. He just sat there and said he was scared. Scared of disappointing her. Scared of losing everything. Scared that if he admitted how bad it was, it would become real. And that's when the internet exploded. TikTok turned the story into a series of emotional breakdown clips, creators reacting with wide eyes and captions like, "I knew something was off," and "This is why you always check the finances." Twitter split into camps overnight. Some people went hard on Birkan, calling him selfish, reckless, unforgivable. Others, quieter but persistent, talked about addiction, about shame, about how this could happen to anyone. Instagram comments flooded Laura's page. "You deserve better. How did you not see this? Stay strong." Each comment felt like another stranger stepping into her living room, judging a moment they weren't there for. Reddit, of course, went deep. Timelines, screenshots, old interviews dissected like evidence. Someone even found a clip where Birkan joked about being lucky with risk, and suddenly that line carried a whole new weight. Laura stopped reading after a while. She had enough noise in her own head. But the real story wasn't online. It was in the quiet moments. The 5 layers of truth that didn't come out all at once. The first layer was denial. Birkan insisting he could fix it. That he just needed time. That he could win it back. Laura wanted to believe that, because it meant this nightmare had an ending that didn't involve losing him. The second layer was realization. Sitting down with actual numbers. Seeing the full amount. Understanding that this wasn't a hole you climbed out of with optimism. This was deep. And it was real. The third layer was betrayal. Not just the money, but the months of looking her in the eye and saying everything was fine. Laura admitted later that this was the moment her chest actually hurt. Like grief. Because she realized she had been sharing a life with someone who was secretly fighting a war she didn't even know existed. The fourth layer was compassion, and this one surprised even her. Seeing Birkan break down. Seeing the shame. The fear. The exhaustion. Realizing that addiction doesn't look like evil. It looks like someone trapped in their own head, making worse choices the more desperate they feel. And then there was the fifth layer. The one that still hasn't fully settled. The question with no easy answer. Can love survive this? Not just survive the debt, but survive the secrecy. The rebuilding of trust from scratch. The fear that it could happen again. I want to ask you something honestly. If the person you loved most hid something like this from you, would you see it as a deal breaker, or a cry for help? Would you stay? Would you walk away? There's no right answer, and anyone pretending there is hasn't lived it. Laura hasn't made everything public. She hasn't turned this into a dramatic statement video or a sponsored healing journey. She's been quiet, and maybe that's the loudest part of all. Because silence usually means someone is still processing, still deciding, still hurting. Birkan, for his part, has stepped back from the spotlight. Sources say he's finally seeking help, that he's facing the addiction head-on instead of trying to outsmart it. That doesn't erase the damage. It doesn't magically restore trust. But it's a start, and sometimes starts are all you have. If you're still here with me, I appreciate you. Seriously. Stories like this aren't easy to sit with, but they matter. If you want to keep having these real conversations, the ones that go deeper than headlines, hit subscribe and stay with us. Not for the drama, but for the truth underneath it. Because behind every scandal, there are people waking up every day trying to figure out how to live with the choices they made and the ones made for them. And this isn't over yet. Not for Laura, not for Birkan, and maybe, if we're honest, not for anyone who's ever trusted someone completely and learned the hard way that love doesn't always come with full disclosure. So I'll leave you with this. Was Birkan a villain, or a man who lost control? Is Laura a victim, or a partner faced with an impossible decision? And if this happened to you, what would you do next?